The views and opinions expressed today on Black Focus Radio are not the views and opinions of the station, its management, or its advertisers. Now, let's get ready to focus on our issues, our solutions, using our voices on Black Focus Radio.
Welcome to Black Focus, the show designed with our community in mind, where we focus on our issues, developing our solutions, using our voices. Central Arkansas, surrounding areas, and the nation. Get ready. Black Focus starts right now. Phone lines open at 855-525-5683. So here's your host, David W. Coleman.
Habari Gani. And that means it's time for another edition of Black Focus Radio, the only show that unabashedly addresses Black issues, creating Black solutions, and amplifying Black voices. Be sure to support our sponsors, Jordan Radio, where we broadcast every day, 12 to 2 p.m. And you know, they like to keep you inspired and informed. And of course, ribrub.com, that's RIBBRUBB.com, where we bake it, grill it, smoke it, oh yeah. And Chanbear Media and Associates, we like to keep you up to date, get your book online, and all of those great things to build your brand. Also, catch Black Focus Radio on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And if you're out there on YouTube, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe on all the platforms. Tell your mama to tell your brother to tell your cousin and all of those other people that are there. Okay? One other thing I want to remind you of is be sure to join my one-man campaign to get rid of the N-word. It's the most despicable word ever created. Our rise begins with how we address ourselves. Okay? And using a derogatory slur against our own people is a negative, self-fulfilling prophecy. In other words, just don't say it. How about calling somebody your brother or your sister, my man, my woman? But whatever you say, just don't say it. Okay? A lot of things to talk about today. It's so much that we got to cover. We're going to go, we're going to do a lot of different things. And, I always I tell people when I'm teaching them how to do their podcast, then make a script. I made a script. Sometimes you have to vary from that script. And we're going to do that today. But before we do anything, let's do Black Facts.
Dynamic Black Facts. Our culture, our history, our people.
All right, so we've got an interesting Black fact for you today. It's probably going to be a combination of two different things. So prior to the show, I was listening to a piece by Dr. Phil, and he was being interviewed. I've forgotten what it was. It was, I won't say what it was because I don't want to call the name and it'd be wrong. But I was fascinated, and I sit now today and I wonder what Oprah Winfrey thinks about Dr. Phil, and what's the other doctor that she did? I can't even remember his name, Dr. Oz. I wonder how she feels about both of them, because it's pretty clear now both of them have identified themselves as racist and bigots. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. We can't deny that. So in this particular Black fact, I want to address something that he said and what revisionist white people try to do to minimize slavery. Now, we talk a lot about the Middle Passage. We talk a lot about how they kidnapped Africans from Africa, and brought them to America. A few years ago, I went to a celebration for the Little Rock Nine in Little Rock. And Andrew Young was one of the main speakers. And Andrew Young made the statement, because Africa now is fractured, people don't realize that the reason Africa is fractured the way it is because of white people, Europeans, okay? But the other thing that I found fascinating is the fact, and oh, by the way, if you look at a map of Africa, It is the only continent that has its borderlines drawn basically in straight lines in a lot of areas. So basically what that boiled down to were the Europeans, the British, the Scottish, the Norwegians, the Spanish, the French, and all of those white Europeans dividing up that country based on its wealth. Okay? So I find it interesting as people try to revise history to make them feel okay about themselves. Now, Andrew Young said that when you look at Africa today, he's glad that he's in America. Well, if you look at Africa today, I can kind of understand what you're saying, Andrew Young. But what was the reasoning behind Africa being the way it is today? That's one thing that he failed to address in that speech that he gave at the Little Rock Nine. During that time period, at that time, I simply lost all respect that I ever had for Andrew Young. I really did. Because I thought he was a lot more learned than he exhibited in that speech that particular day. Okay? So that brings us forward, because a lot of people like to try to say, well, you know, Africans sold their people into slavery too. Well, no, they didn't. They traded people for gifts from Europeans, not knowing, many of them not knowing that those people were going to end up in the African slave trade. All right? So, as I said, that brings us to Dr. Phil, and it makes me wonder what Oprah Winfrey feels about these people now. Because Dr. Phil, in this interview, they try to minimize slavery. And let me just bring up, or let me just say what he called slavery. He called slavery involuntary relocation. Did you hear what I just said? He called slavery involuntary relocation. I was floored. This was the first, apparently this interview is old. This is the first time I had heard it. I've never been a big fan of Dr. Phil in the first place. And then after he came out being the racist that he was, that he always was, that solidified my point about him. You know, sometimes you can just feel about some people. I felt that about Dr. Phil. I didn't get caught up in the hype. Now, involuntary relocation. So that means that I go to your house and I take you from your house and move you somewhere else. And in the midst of that move, I'm raping you. I'm murdering you. I'm making you work for free. And you called it involuntary relocation? Really? He also went on to say that people back then should not be punished. Well, people today should not be punished for what people did back during that time period. Oh, really? Okay. So he tried to claim that the laws back then was different than what they are today. And we hear a lot of white supremacists trying to make that argument. Okay? So let me debunk that real fast. Last I checked, murder is still murder. Last I checked, rape is still rape. Last I checked, child exploitation is still child exploitation. You get this, right? So what a lot of these revisionist white people try to pretend that, oh, because the laws were different back then, those people should not be judged. Wait a minute. Really? So what you're saying is that Hitler should not be judged because the laws were different in Germany. Now, what Hitler did was in Europe. What your white ancestors did was in America. So you're saying to me that because the laws were different back then, it's okay. Is that what we're under? So he went on to say, well, we shouldn't be taking down the statues and renaming these schools because these people were different. These people were rapists. These people were murderers. These people were child sexual abusers. I give no credit to George Washington. I give no credit for Thomas Jefferson. I give no credit for what white people call the founding fathers. Just because they wrote the Constitution, they were still murderers and rapists and slave owners. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So are you trying to minimize it? Just recently, this past week, Donald Dummy, because he's certainly a dummy, he's had the Smithsonian put up a sign in front of the museum saying that some of the stuff in there may not be true. Huh? Here's a person that can't even read. Here's a person that don't even know how to enunciate. Pronounce decent, simple words that a third grader could. And he's going to say that some things in a museum is not true? Targeting some of the black things that went on in this country? You see, there's a revisionist history because white people, look, if you really feel bad about what happened during slavery, why don't you just simply apologize? Why do you continue to build lie upon top of lie upon top of lie? Because that makes you look stupid. It makes you look ignorant. And it solidifies the point that you're a racist. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Robert E. Lee was a racist. Okay? No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Robert E. Lee supported killing black people. Robert E. Lee supported lynching. Robert E. Lee supported raping black women. Robert E. Lee supported raping black children. There's no revisionist history that you can write that will change those facts. And you can howl at the moon as long as you want. The problem is that sometimes the moon sets and you're just howling in the wind. And people like Dr. Phil, Donald Trump, those who wrote the Project 2025, and all of these so-called white people, Rick DeSantis in Florida, all of you people in Texas who want to change the textbook so you don't want your children to understand how vicious your people were. All you people who massacred people in the 20s during the Red Summer. All of you people who stood around and watched with laughter and picnics. People being lynched. And newspapers who broadcast them. And people who sold postcards. You can't change history. You can lie, you can lie, you can lie. But nothing's going to change. Here's the fascinating thing about that. And I'll wrap this part of the story up, is that for decades, the Egyptians tried to claim that the original Egyptians were not black. And then the hieroglyphs came out. And then the pictures of the statues with their noses blown off came out. And then, because of genealogy and anthropology and genetics, DNA as we call it, we discovered, white scientists, not black ones, we discovered that in fact the original Egyptians were African. And you know why it makes sense? Because if you do any study whatsoever, you would know that the original Eve, as they call her, was found in Africa. I believe it was over 300,000 years ago. How could that be possible? In fact, we know that the original Americans were African. How could that be possible? We know beyond a shadow of a doubt that if the originators were white, then it stands to reason that the majority of the world would be white. But that's not the case, is it? The majority of the world is actually people of color. Everybody else are derivatives of black people who originated in Africa. That's just a fact, Jack. Now, one other thing I want to talk about. I want to talk about Argentina and the World Cup. I've been cheering against Argentina for decades because Argentina is, next to America, I would argue that Argentina is probably one of the most racist countries in the world. Mexico is another. That's why I've never been fascinated to go to Mexico, because Mexico don't like black folks. It wasn't up until 2015 that Mexico decided that they would count their Afro-Mexicans. They refused to count them at one point. Mexico is one of those places. Even you look at some of the Mexican shows, Mexican news outlets, you don't see black people on it. They're no better than Argentina. Argentina purposely tried to rid themselves of black people. They put all the black people on the front lines and got them killed. They made sure that the black women who were left married and had babies by white men. So Samuel L. Jackson came out last week and basically told people that if you're cheering for Argentina during the World Cup, then you're no better than Steven from Django. White people got upset. Argentinians got upset. You saw how those Argentinians were acting again towards black people during the World Cup, calling them monkeys and so on and so forth. But here's what makes Argentina even worse than what it is. During the 1940s, when the Nazis were trying to run away from World War II, when they were trying to hide from world stigma and world prosecutions, you know where they went? They went to Argentina. Argentina, they will not send or allow, or I should say, they will not extradite to home countries. So there were many Nazis who lived and grew and made their lives in Argentina. And in some places in Argentina today, there are still Nazi conclaves. So if Argentinians want people to feel sorry for them, the one thing that the World Cup exposed was your racism. And I don't give a damn if you do have the best player in the world. I'm glad you lost. And I hope you continue to lose. And by the way, people need to begin to ask the question, why did the Trump administration give $40 billion to Argentina? Did you all know that we give $6 to $7 billion to Argentina every year? Did y'all know that? Why are we propping up racist states? In other words, my tax dollars goes to a racist country, which is Argentina. Now, it's not the only one, because Israel is part of that problem as well. But here is Argentina, and people are mad at Samuel L. Jackson because he made the point that Argentina is one of, if not the worst racist country in the world. And I totally agree with him. And I'm not mad at Samuel. In fact, I'm glad that he's bold enough to call it out. See, unlike a lot of these black entertainers and musicians, see, they're comfortable with what they have. They're not going to call out anything because they are afraid. One thing I love about Samuel, he ain't afraid of no MF. And if you know Samuel L. Jackson, you certainly understand what I mean by that. So y'all can call him out. Look, what is Samuel? He's 72, 73 years old. What are you going to take from him? Okay? He's got his money. He ain't going nowhere. You either love him or you hate him. And I love him for standing up and being the black man that he's always been. And if you're mad, you can scratch it and get glad. So I found it fascinating when we were the World Cup. We had a dichotomy going on here. Spain won, and then you had Argentina. Who do you cheer for if you're black? Do you cheer for Spain? Because Spain was instrumental in the, guess what? the African slave trade. Christopher Columbus. You all remember him, right? The man who never made it to Americas. The man whom we celebrate. Again, you talk about a lie. Christopher Columbus never made it to North America. So why do we have a holiday and say that he actually discovered America? Now, fortunately for me, I went to schools that really educated us. And it was actually Amerigo Vespucci who America is named after, because you can't discover a land that is already inhabited by people. In They Came Before Columbus by Dr. Ivan Van Sertima, he makes that point very, very clear. America was already inhabited. It was already here. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. We know there's a reason why America has pyramids on it. Why is it that every continent has pyramids? Have you ever asked that question? Have you ever thought about the continental drift? The continental divide? Do you know right now that the continents are moving away from each other still about 2 centimeters per day? Now that doesn't seem a lot, but over time that could become very problematic. Remember, they told us that people came from the Aleutian Islands and walked over from Asia to the Americas, and that's how America was discovered. And then they went down into Central and South America. Nope. Dr. Ivan Van Sertima makes clear that, see, part of the continental drift was that Africa, all of the continents at one point, was together. And when the tectonic plates began to shift, that began to split the continents. So many of those people that were already in this area we call America today had no way to get across the oceans. So they grew and lived and became who they are. That's why when you look at some of the older pictures of what they call Native Americans, they look like black folks. That's why some people will tell you that many of the slaves were not from the transatlantic slave trade. Some of them were captured that were already here. Just wanted to throw that out to you. Okay? Spain, what a choice. Argentina, what a choice. I didn't cheer for either one. In fact, I was glad Argentina lost. But too bad it couldn't have ended with a tectonic shift. And that's our Black Fact for today.
Keep listening to Black Focus Radio for more dynamic Black facts, our culture, our history, our people on joynetradio.com.
All right, I hope you enjoyed that Black Fact. I just had to throw that in because, there was an interesting dichotomy there with the World Cup. Spain, who was part of the world's the slave trade, who initiated it, them in Portugal, by the way, and then of course then Argentina, the worst country in the world as it relates to racism. Boy, this is why you got to start teaching your children, okay? Because they are trying to color our schools and make it as though white people were just these wonderful people, when in fact they have been the problem. They have been a plague on the world. And although some white people are beginning to change their attitudes, there are far too many of them who still want to be racist. And we have to call them out every chance we get. There is no place, no safe place for bigotry and racism. Period. End of story. All right, we got to take our first break. When we come back, oh man, where do I want to go? I want to talk a little bit about this situation that happened in Madison, Wisconsin. It continues to happen, and it boils down to consciousness, character, and conviction. We'll talk more. It's called Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices on joynetradio.com.
When the game becomes bigger than football, demanding change is the only way to win. Hi, I'm Dante Sinkay. I'm wrapping up the last few edits of my new novel, Blue Chip Down. It's a political sports thriller surrounding real-life situations available for purchase this September. I spent 15 years in sports media and championed the rights of amateur athletes getting paid. Today, through NIL, that's a reality. Recently on social media, I created a meme with black athletes stating, "If I can't vote in your state, I won't play in your state." Black athletes have always used the sports platform to highlight injustice in America and around the world. Greats like Jesse Owens in the 1936 Olympics, to John Carlos and Tommy Smith raising the Black Power sign in the 1968 Olympics, and who can forget the greatest, Muhammad Ali, trumpeting black causes wherever the opportunity presented itself. Most recently, the 2015 Missouri football team provided prima facie evidence exhibiting black athletic power. Blue Chip Down is not a novel created to capitalize on current political strife. It's been in the works for over a decade, awaiting its relevance. Now is that time. It's centered around Amon-Ra Fuqua, the #1 high school recruit who ignites a movement demanding justice for fellow athletes and his people while colliding with corruption, politics, race, and power. This is a message to black athletes. There's something bigger than dribbling and scoring touchdowns. Pre-order Blue Chip Down by Dante Sinkay today and save 20% before its official release. Click the enclosed link to order my new novel, Blue Chip Down by Dante Sinkay today. Every day, potential customers are deciding who to trust. The question is, will they choose you? At Chanberry Media Consultants, we help businesses, nonprofits, entrepreneurs, and authors build brands that stand out and get results. Need a new logo, podcast or website development and evaluation, grant research and writing, book editing with formatting and cover design? Chanberry Media Consultants has got you covered. With over 40 years of media experience, David W. Coleman and the Chanberry team combine creativity with strategy to help your organization communicate with confidence and grow with purpose. Don't settle for ordinary when your brand can be extraordinary. Call Chanberry Media Consultants today at 615-554-0568. That's 615-554-0568. Chanberry Media Consultants, building brands, creating influence, and most importantly, delivering results. What's old is new again. The release of the Pain of Vengeance audiobook is finally here. A new generation, but the old story remains the same. What happens to an officer of the court when the tables of justice are turned against him? Will he abide or take the law into his own hands? Follow the saga of Malik Coleman as he makes decisions that will change lives forever. Be the first to hear it and hear it again. What would you do? Accept an unjust ruling or reject the system outright that views fathers as second-class citizens? Order The Pain of Vengeance today. Now available as an audiobook. The Pain of Vengeance will make you cheer, cry, laugh, and make you question equality and who truly benefits. Order The Pain of Vengeance audiobook by Dante Sinkay today.
All right, welcome back to Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices. 855-525-5683 is the number. That's how we get in touch with, how you get in touch with me, I should say, if you'd like to contact me. Oh, send me an email at blackfocusradio@gmail.com as well if you got a show host or show guest. Let me just tell you something real fast that's going to happen. It looks like we're going to be changing the format a little bit of the show, whereas that hopefully my very dear friend Robert Webb will start being on the show. We're going to start streaming the show live again on Joynet Radio. We're working out the technical difficulties of that going on as well, but we'll give you more information about that. We are targeting September the 7th as our first return to with me and Robert Webb. Okay, so we'll give you more information about that as we learn more. All right, so this segment I want to talk a little bit about some things that are going on. There was a killing, if you haven't heard by now, that happened in Madison, Wisconsin. Of course, everybody knows about the Nolan Wells case. There was another case that took place in South Carolina that a lot of people don't realize, where two young men killed a black boy, and we'll talk about that as well. But I left off saying character, consciousness, and conviction. And I'm currently writing a book today called Blue Chip Down. And it is about character, consciousness, and conviction. And the question that I've been asking our young people today is, do you have the character, the consciousness, and the conviction of the young people of yesteryear? Like the kids from the Children's Crusade, like SNCC, like all of those young people who got out and marched and protested for not better treatment, but simply equality. See, the one thing that white people fail to realize when you're talking about justice is that black people don't want any special treatment. We just want to be treated equal. Equal. We want the same things for our children as you want for your children. We don't want anything more. We don't want anything less. So the question that continues to plague me is, why are white people so against treating people equal? It makes no sense to me. In fact, it never has, for that matter. So I think what we have to start doing, just like my people that did it during the 60s, we have to make them pay attention. Okay, it wasn't for, if not for the civil rights, the marches, and all of those things, white people wouldn't have paid attention. You said, well, we eventually would have come around. No, you wouldn't have. Really? Well, let's see. Emancipation Proclamation, 1865. The Voting Rights Act was not signed until 1965. That was 100 damn years. Hello? Hello? What? And now we're about, 40, 50 years in, and we're still having the questions about race. Doesn't make any sense, does it? So, here's why I'm bringing this up. I want to read you a part of a story. Authorities say a 13-year-old boy was cut with a knife and held underwater at a South Carolina boat dock. Now, a 17-year-old is charged with murder. The South Carolina Law Enforcement Division said Landon Austin Moore was charged Monday in the killing of Darrell Lowry in Modoc. According to the warrant affidavit, the confrontation involved Moore, Lowry, and an unnamed 16-year-old. Investigators say a fight left Lowry with knife-related cuts, and Moore held him underwater until he died. In a statement, the McCormick County Sheriff's Office thanked the community for its patience, yada, yada. They also expressed condolences for the family. Moore was booked in the McCormick County Detention Center. The other teen involved was taken to a South Carolina Department of Juvenile Justice. The sheriff's office requested the investigation, which remains active. The case will be prosecuted in South Carolina. I want to throw that out there for you. Okay. There's one other story that I'm trying to make a point with here. If y'all hadn't seen the news. A police shooting death of a homeless man who the chief said wounded an officer with a knife while resisting arrest has rolled the Wisconsin capital city, with protesters and community groups demanding accountability and an end to racial injustice. Corey Darrell Ruiz, 38, was shot and killed on a street last Wednesday. The moments of his death, captured by bystander videos, that were later posted online. The race of the officer who fired the gun has not been released by police. Ruiz is identified as a black or Latino in Wisconsin court records. It does matter who you are and what your past is. You should not lose it does not matter, I should say. You should not lose your life as a result of an encounter with law enforcement, said Mayor Sada Rhodes Conway during a news conference on Thursday. Wisconsin shows that this young man had been involved in the court system quite often. I'm not going to go into that because they always try to destroy the victim's character and try to make it as though whatever happened to him was justified. Now, let me just say this, because maybe you haven't seen the video. Okay? Now, they say that the officer who did the shooting was actually wounded by Ruiz. Now, I've seen the video. In fact, I've seen it multiple times from different angles because multiple people recorded the video and uploaded it online. So the police really can't lie. The young man was apparently running from police. Police blocked him in. He was on a bicycle, by the way, and knocked him off the bicycle. When he hit the ground, police swarmed him. It was about 4 different cops who swarmed this young man. He was on the ground, semi-face down, is the best way to describe it, but was struggling. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. One police had him was laying near on his back. The other one had taken his foot and placed his foot on top of the young man. He still struggled. A third cop was on one arm and the other one was on the other arm. And then the 4th cop came in and the struggle continued. Now, at this point, the 4th cop pulled out his revolver. And, oh, by the way, they said they had tried to tase him. There were images of people using the taser. The 4th cop pulled out his revolver and fired 3 shots into this man's head. You get this, right? Now, some of you bootlickers, as I call them, will say, well, he shouldn't have been fighting. He gets what he deserved. You know, let me put a pause on that, because over the last couple of months, I've been seeing a lot of videos of white people fighting police. None of them were shot and killed. I'm not exaggerating. The one that pops in my head right now, I saw a police officer who was fighting this white guy, and they started fighting. The white guy began to get the advantage. The police officer took off running into a grass field. Yes, the police officer was armed. Never did that police officer unholster his weapon. Never did that police officer fire a shot. Y'all saw the video about a week or so ago where the man in Las Vegas was walking around firing an AK-47, right? The police tracked him down. They never fired a shot at a man who was wantonly firing an AK-47 in a restricted neighborhood. As a matter of fact, there was a door cam that was shown on the news where the father in a particular house where the man had come up on the porch and banged on the door was telling his people, I don't know, he had kids or somebody in the house, to get down and hide. Then the assailant left the front porch and kept walking up this street firing this AK-47. He subsequently died, but it wasn't from what we understand. It wasn't from the police. They believed that he was on some type of drugs or medication, and he hyperventilated and ended up dying. But the police never pulled their weapon. We've seen case after case after case of white people accosting police, fighting police, and they get taken into custody. But a black man or a black woman, all they have to do is utter a trigger word, whatever that particular word may be for that particular white cop, and that black person ends up dead. Now, let's go back to the Wisconsin story here for a moment. They say that the guy pulled a knife. In the videos that I saw, I never saw a knife. Okay? There was a knife later shown that apparently this man had, and the cop that pulled the trigger was injured. Okay? Let's talk about his injuries. Oh, we can't, because they haven't shown us his injuries. They haven't even mentioned what those injuries were. Okay? So, even with 4 cops subduing this man with a knife, that had a knife, they felt it necessary to fire 3 times into the skull of this black man and kill him. You know, this reminds me of the case that broke off in Memphis about, it's been over 30 years now. It's about 25 years. Lemoyne Orange Gardens. It was a housing development. Mother called the police. Her son had a mental breakdown. He was stabbing himself. Let me say that again. He was stabbing himself. He was cutting his wrist. And the police arrived on the scene. And because they didn't understand that he was having a mental episode, and even the mother was screaming, saying, please, please don't shoot my son. He doesn't have all of his faculties, yada, 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 yada. He ended up getting 14 bullets emptied into his body. Yeah, he was black. Now, I'm not saying cops don't kill white suspects. But, you know, as I sit here and I think about it, I'm trying to remember, and I know it has happened. I'm trying to remember when a black cop has wantonly shot and killed a white suspect that was unarmed. Can y'all tell me? When was the last time there was a case where a black cop shot and killed a white suspect? Did it happen in Memphis? Because, you know, Memphis has a lot of black cops up there. Okay? Those same black cops will beat the hell out of black kids. They'll beat the hell out of black people. But they never beat the hell out of white people. Why is that? I'm open for any comments that you may have, because I want to try to understand this, and so do a lot of other people. It does not make sense to us that black people are continually being killed by white police officers. It doesn't make any sense to me. Why does that continue to happen? Because you don't see black police officers killing white people. I don't. Do you? Help a black man out here, because there's a problem here. And I started about consciousness, character, and convictions, because when that story came across my feed, the first thing I said is, I wonder how many black kids go to the University of Wisconsin. Okay? I wonder how many play basketball for them. I wonder how many play football for them. Because here we are again, where black people are being wantonly murdered in the street. And don't give me this mess, well, he shouldn't have had a knife. Well, last I checked, there is this thing called the Constitution of the United States. And every black person, every person, although they initially didn't consider us people, that's why they were able to kill us without regard. But nowadays, every black person, in fact, every person that is in America, whether you are a citizen or you're a foreign national, you have the right to go to trial, and you are innocent prior to being guilty. So are we now allowing police to be the judge, juries, and executioners under the guise that I'm gonna get home to my family and the criminal be damned? That's a question that we need to ask. We'll take a break. We'll continue after the break. It's called Black Focus Radio, our issues, our solutions, our voices, on joynetradio.com.
Every day, potential customers are deciding who to trust. The question is, will they choose you? At Chanbear Media Consultants, we help businesses, nonprofits, entrepreneurs, and authors build brands that stand out and get results. Need a new logo, podcast or website development and evaluation, grant research and writing, book editing with formatting and cover design? Chanbear Media Consultants has got you covered. With over 40 years of media experience, David W. Coleman and the Chanbear team combine creativity with strategy to help your organization communicate with confidence and grow with purpose. Don't settle for ordinary when your brand can be extraordinary. Call Chanbear Media Consultants today at 615-554-0568. That's 615-554-0568. Chanbear Media Consultants, building brands, creating influence, and most importantly, delivering results. What's old is new again. The release of the Pain of Vengeance audiobook is finally here. A new generation, but the old story remains the same. What happens to an officer of the court when the tables of justice are turned against him? Will he abide or take the law into his own hands? Follow the saga of Malik Coleman as he makes decisions that will change lives forever. Be the first to hear it and hear it again. What would you do? Accept an unjust ruling or reject the system outright that views fathers as second-class citizens? Order The Pain of Vengeance today. Now available as an audiobook. The Pain of Vengeance will make you cheer, cry, laugh, and make you question equality and who truly benefits. Order The Pain of Vengeance audiobook by Dante Sinkay today. Attention entrepreneurs, nonprofits, and soon-to-be 501c3 organizations. My name is David W. Coleman, and I want to ask you a question. Are you looking for funding for your business or organization? The new year is upon us, and it's time to get those grant proposals ready. Deadlines for submittals will arrive quickly, and I can help you put your best business foot forward. There are multiple funding sources available to assist you in completing your mission. You just need to know where to look. If you are new to proposal writing and need tips on where to search for funding, this seminar is for you. I'll help you demystify some of the myths relating to grant writing. I'll give you great proposal writing tips to help you get your submission in the A-pile. I'll point you to funding sources that most people ignore when pursuing assistance. It doesn't matter if you are new to the game or a veteran in this space. I have no doubt there is information you can utilize to get the dollars flowing to your business or organization. This is not a get-rich-quick scheme, but tried and effective methods to be successful. If you want to know more, respond with the word grants in the comments below, and I will send you information on the very next Grants and Federal Assistance Seminar. In the meantime, keep looking for that funding, and I'll see you at the next Grants and Federal Assistance Seminar.
Welcome back to Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices. 855-525-5683 is the number. That's how you get in touch with me. If you'd like to join the show, also send me an email at blackfocusradio@gmail.com. So we were talking about the situation that happened in Wisconsin. I wanted to drop the issue of Nolan Wells back in here. You know, he was a young black man who was killed during the 4th of July, and there seems to be a cover-up going on with the Mississippi officials. We'll see. I heard a video the other day where the boat, if you all are not following this case, one of the boats was taking on water and they called for help. And there's a voice in the background that clearly asked the question, is he dead? Who exactly was that voice? And that was a female voice. Who was the voice and what was she referring to? Now, don't give me this stuff saying, well, is the engine dead? Because that's not what she said. It clearly said, is he dead? Remember, we're talking about consciousness, character, and conviction. The question is, young black people, what world do you want to continue to live in? You know, one of the things that I told my son is that his charge to keep was the name on his back. That is the Coleman name. Now, there are a lot of Colemans out there, but just based on our family genealogy, his charge to keep was the Coleman's name. And during my research of the Colemans, I must be honest, some of it ain't pretty. And I told him, I said, look, I can only carry the ball so far. It's your turn to pick that ball up and carry it farther. That's his charge to keep. The same thing applies to those who fought during the 60s for equal rights, for voting rights, for the civil rights legislation. Many of those people are dead. Many of those people are senile. They're old. Even I told you about Andrew Young. The comments that he made was old and senilic as far as I'm concerned. It is time for young people to pick up the ball of justice and move it forward. That's what I mean by character consciousness and conviction. Let me just read this. It's called the Fifth Amendment. You may have heard of the thing called the Constitution. Maybe. I have. And maybe you have not. And one of the things that I tell people, because you all know I do a book list, and the first thing on the book list, and I don't necessarily have the books in order, because every one of the books on my book list needs to be read. But the first thing that I have on my book list is the United States Constitution. It's kind of like when I go out and do my seminars, Rites of Passage and Queenship, and my Teenage Survival Kit, and I show my bio in my PowerPoint presentation. The first thing that I have in my bio is father, because that's the most important thing that I have ever done, was be a father and raise two good children. And I should say, help raise two good children, because their mothers had something to do with it as well. So the first thing on my book list is you must read the Constitution of the United States of America. And why should you read that? Well, I'm glad you asked. It's very simple. How can you live in a country and you don't even understand the laws by which you are governed? You see, if we understood those laws, a lot of things that are happening right now in America would not be happening. But because they want to keep you dumb, stupid, and ignorant, they don't want to educate you. You see, they took civics. I remember when I was growing up, I hated civics. But we had to take civics. It was mandatory. Not just, it was civics and American history were two different things. And you know, we had to learn, because I grew up in Little Rock, Arkansas. Not only did we have to take civics, we had to learn about the history of Little Rock. I want to learn about Little Rock. Well, you better, you're going to flunk this course. So why is it that you don't understand the laws by which you are governed? You say, well, they didn't teach us this in school. Well, wait a minute. You live by the Constitution every day of your life. So why haven't you dared to pick up a book? Oh, no, don't pick up a book. You know, I used to carry, and I've got a backpack around here somewhere. Wherever I go, I carry the Constitution of the United States. I remember being pulled over by police one time, and I pulled out the Constitution and laid it on my dashboard. When he came up and started hassling me, I looked at him and I looked at the Constitution. I looked at him and I looked at the Constitution. After he ran my license and so on and so forth, he said, "Thank you, Mr. Coleman. You have a nice day." Because he knew that he was about to deal with someone who understood his rights. So why don't you? You don't understand the First Amendment and its 5 tenets. You don't understand the Second Amendment. You don't understand the Third Amendment, the Fourth. There are 10 amendments. The first 10 amendments deals directly with you. Okay. And you're going to figure out why I'm talking about this here in a moment. But I want to jump to the Fifth Amendment. Protects rights in criminal cases, including due process, fairness in court, and protection against self-incrimination. Here's Amendment number 6. Oh my goodness. Guarantees the right of a fast and public trial by an impartial jury and the right to an attorney. Oh my goodness. Wow. Are you serious? So that goes back to what I was saying about the Ruiz case that happened in Wisconsin this past Wednesday. Those two rights there were abridged. They were taken away from Mr. Ruiz under the guise of, well, I'm a cop and I'm going to get home to my family. We hear that all the time now. We hear that as a justification. We hear police press conferences justifying why they murdered a man, most of the time a black man, in cold blood in the streets. Part of the reason that we have webcams now or body cameras on police officers, because body cameras or police could not be believed. And now with the invention of cell phones, everybody has one. Okay? Everybody. So we have to make sure that our rights are not being abridged because you've got some uneducated fool with a gun, potentially a bigot or a racist, who thinks just because he's a black man, I'm going to blow his brains out. Now, before we go, to make my point even more crystal clear, let me just say this. Do y'all remember the video of the woman who was pulled over by police? The white woman? Do y'all remember that? When I talk about this video, you're going to remember it. She was pulled over by police. Apparently was, I forgot, I don't know if she was speeding or whatever the case may be. And she was very hysterical. And she said to the police, she said, "I'm afraid that you're going to shoot and kill me." The police officer responded, "We only shoot and kill black people." Hello? Y'all don't remember that? That's my point. Because again, I asked the question earlier in this segment, can you tell me a case where a black officer wantonly shot and killed a white suspect? I'm going to actually, after the show today, put that question out on social media because I'd like to know. Cite me some cases. I'd like to know because it doesn't seem to be happening. But every American, whether you black, white, or polka dot, should be concerned that at any given moment, a cop can pull out his gun and blow your brains out and argue self-defense. And by the way, what are the injuries for the Wisconsin cop? We'll take our top of the hour break. When we get back, it's called Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices on joynetradio.com.
Every day, potential customers are deciding who to trust. The question is, will they choose you? At Chanbear Media Consultants, we help businesses, nonprofits, entrepreneurs, and authors build brands that stand out and get results. Need a new logo, podcast or website development and evaluation, grant research and writing, book editing with formatting and cover design? Chanbear Media Consultants has got you covered. With over 40 years of media experience, David W. Coleman and the Chanbear team combine creativity with strategy to help your organization communicate with confidence and grow with purpose. Don't settle for ordinary when your brand can be extraordinary. Call Chanbear Media Consultants today at 615-554-0568. That's 615-554-0568. Chanbear Media Consultants, building brands, creating influence, and most importantly, delivering results. What's old is new again. The release of the Pain of Vengeance audiobook is finally here. A new generation, but the old story remains the same. What happens to an officer of the court when the tables of justice are turned against him? Will he abide or take the law into his own hands? Follow the saga of Malik Coleman as he makes decisions that will change lives forever. Be the first to hear it and hear it again. What would you do? Accept an unjust ruling or reject the system outright that views fathers as second-class citizens? Order The Pain of Vengeance today. Now available as an audiobook. The Pain of Vengeance will make you cheer, cry, laugh, and make you question equality and who truly benefits. Order The Pain of Vengeance audiobook by Dante Sinkay today.
The views and opinions expressed today on Black Focus Radio are not the views and opinions of the station, its management, or its advertisers. Now, let's get ready to focus on our issues, our solutions, using our voices on Black Focus Radio.
Welcome to Black Focus, the show designed with our community in mind, where we focus on our issues, developing our solutions, using our voices. Central Arkansas, surrounding areas, and the nation. Get ready. Black Focus starts right now. Phone lines open at 855-525-5683. So here's your host, David W. Coleman.
Welcome back to the second hour of Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices. 855-525-5683 is the number. That's how you get in touch with us. If you'd like to join the show, a lot of stuff to talk about. We're talking about a lot of race things today, unfortunately, because that seems to be what's going on in the community. It never ceases to amaze me how white people continue to push these narratives and want people to feel sorry for them when their racism is called out. I want to remind you to support our sponsors, joynetradio.com, Chanbear Media Consultants, as well as ribrub.com. And don't forget to order my book. I've got a couple of more books. I want to thank all of you all who have been buying the book. I told you all last week that I sell the book direct, although you can get it on Amazon, but I sell it direct because the turnaround is better for me as it relates to money. All right. It costs a lot of money to produce a book, and Amazon takes 45% of that. So I try to minimize that share by selling the book directly to you, and thank all of you who have already purchased the book, and hopefully a lot more of you will continue to do so. All right. So I want to continue on this, and hopefully we'll move away, but there's so many things on my list that I need to talk about today. It's amazing to me that deals with race. This country can't get over their racial problem, okay? So I saw a story yesterday that kind of shocked me. Because remember, I told you my book coming out called Blue Chip Down deals with this particular issue, or somewhat tangentially deals with this issue. I saw a story about a young guy by the name of Brooke Williams. Brooke Williams was an 18-year-old kid. And I also want to talk to you about this other story about Western Kentucky. So there are two stories about college that I tell you all while you're sending your kids to these white universities. They don't give a damn about you. Let's start with Western Kentucky, okay? Because it's kind of sad. So there was a young man by the name of, let me get his name, Victory Vaca. Victory Vaca was a young football player at Western Kentucky. Unfortunately for him, and this story just happened this spring, unfortunately for him, his mother passed away unexpectedly. Okay? She passed away unexpectedly. And look, anyone who has had a relative to die, especially just at the drop of a hat, you are upset, you are angry, you are frustrated. You don't, to some extent, some people just don't want to go on with their lives. Vaca, who played football for Western Kentucky, needed some time off, and he went home. He was gone for over a month. He communicated with his teachers. He continued to take classes online. He also communicated with his coaches. He all of a sudden communicated with one of his defensive coaches, and his defensive coach suggested that he had abandoned practice and they had removed him from his scholarship. Okay. So you would tend to believe that, okay, if you remove me from my scholarship, I can then go ahead and enroll and continue to play at another school. But instead, the coach basically set him up as failure to appear, which meant that he could no longer even transfer because, according to them, his coaches, he had abandoned his scholarship. Y'all get this, right? I tell you all the time that these coaches don't really give a damn about you. They took his scholarship and then they kept him. They filed a waiver with the NCAA and kept him from being able to transfer and go to another school. That's one story. Okay? By the way, Victory Vaca was black. Now you tell me, what coach, what university? Now I'm going to tell you, black parents, why would you send your child to Western Kentucky University? Because it clearly says, and one of the coaches said, hey, you abandoned us. We had to go out and find another defensive tackle. You weren't even concerned about his mother had died abruptly. You were concerned about whether or not you were going to have a defensive tackle. This is how these people think about your children. Come on. Why aren't you sending your children to HBCUs where people, the campus, the administration gives a damn about you? Now we might have to change that based on what happened at Howard this past week, but that's another story for another day. What's happening with Howard up in there, man? But they took the boy's scholarship, and not only that, they blocked him from being able to transfer to other schools. That's some low down-ish. You know what I'm saying? Now, let's go to Aurora University. I've heard of Aurora. I didn't know the history of Aurora. Aurora, apparently back in the day, was pretty racist. And usually when you deal with those types of smaller schools, that racism doesn't really go away. And the few black people that end up on that campus are usually subjected to lots and lots of racism. You just don't hear about it. Just so happens that Brooke Williams who was a freshman football player, decided to go to Aurora. It was 30 minutes away from his house. He thought it would be convenient. So he went and stayed over a fellow teammate's house, which was closer to avoid the commute. Apparently there were other players over there as well. All of them white. Now, if you haven't figured out yet, black parents, you know, I was a victim of this. My mom sent me to a white camp that had all white kids. I was the only black kid. And my mom sent me to the camp, and her argument was, and I hated the camp every day. I literally had to fight every day. And when they realized that I was whooping ass and taking names, they backed off because they didn't want to get their noses busted. Because my shot back in the day, my first shot was going to always to hit you in the nose. That was just me. One kid went to the rest of the camp with his nose, with a busted nose and black eyes. Because when you break somebody's nose, typically you get black eyes. But that enough about me. But I'm just saying, my mom did that to me. And her argument was, well, I'm going to send you to this camp because we live in a white world. And I want you to be able to deal with white people. Okay. I dealt with them. Because see, as soon as you whoop a racist ass, he'll still be racist, but he'll keep his comments to himself. But back to Brooke Williams at Aurora University. He went to the house, stayed over with some teammates. Apparently, a few of his teammates were racist. They made racial slurs. They threatened him. He got to the point where he was in fear of his life and decided that he didn't want to go to that university anymore. Mom and dad called the university. No contact. Sent emails to the president and the vice president and the coach. No response. They did this on numerous occasions, over and over again, until finally the vice president reached out and they set up a conference. And according to them, that they didn't seem to really care what happened to her son, Brooke. Weird that you name a black kid Brooke, but that's another story for another day. And they didn't care. And then the coach, because see, when I first read this story, the first thing that popped into my mind, because I played organized athletics through college, junior high, high school, college, and I know I played baseball too, and I know some coaches are racist. I had a very racist baseball coach. Baseball was my first love. Probably should have played that more than football, but because of the racism that was going on at the time in baseball, I left baseball to play football. I don't regret it. I do have 8 titanium screws and 4 hinges in my neck because of football. Probably wouldn't have got that if I played baseball, but that's another story for another day. This ain't about me. But you would tend to believe that coaches will always step in and defend their players. You would tend to believe that, right? Especially if you are a college coach, because you want black players, because black players are the better athletes in most cases, and they help you win, subsequently helping you to keep your job. But not this coach. And when I found out the name of the coach, it boggled my mind. The parents said the coach didn't really give a damn. He took up for the players. He wasn't concerned about what had happened to Brooke Williams, his wide receiver. In fact, he made the statement that when he played, he and black players used to make racial jokes all the time. I'm not kidding. And then I found out the name of this player. His name was Dan Beebe. He played for the Green Bay Packers. Hello? So what I'm saying to you is we as black people have got to be concerned about trying to force our children into white spaces. The only thing that we need to be concerned about is whether or not that our universities and schools are getting their equal share. That's why that argument that came out by Forbes a couple of years ago about black land grant colleges are owed billions of dollars because they are not getting their fair share from state legislators. Hello? This is a problem. In fact, Tennessee State is going through a reclamation. From what I understand, there are a lot of white administrators that are now taking over that school. Is it still an HBCU? That's a good question. Because Tennessee State is one of those land grant colleges that is owed close to $1 billion from the state legislators. That dates back over 30 years. So again, more racial incidents. It goes back to what I started talking about. Consciousness, character, and convictions. You see, I think the biggest mistake that we made during the 60s is thinking that if we could just go to white colleges and white schools and white stores, that we would be okay, that they would accept us. Not understanding that the best of us came through HBCUs. We came through places like Fisk. We came through places like Arkansas A&M. We came through places like Morgan State. We came through places like Spelman, Morehouse, Meharry College. We came through that. Our greatest leaders came through black universities. Why is it that so many of them came through black universities? That's because they had nowhere other place to go. And by doing that, that colored their thought processes and understood the importance of black education and black people, subsequently becoming great leaders. So I tell people all the time, you think that you got to go to a white university in order to be found out or seen by scouts? Let me just do a quick Google search live on air. Because I tell you all the time, Google is a wonderful tool. My favorite player, one of my favorite players, came from an HBCU. His name was Steve Air McNair. Okay? So what I'm going to do right now, watch this. Who are the Hall of Fame football players who played at HBCUs? Okay? Now, I want to tell you something. The reason I'm doing this, because they've lied to you and said that if you don't go to a PWI, then you will not be able to get into the Hall of Fame. Okay? That's a lie. So let me just go down this list real fast, because I want black players to understand that if you are good enough, they will find you. Jerry Rice, Walter Payton, Deacon Jones, Art Shell, Mel Blount. Wait a minute. I'm skipping a few. Let me just start over. I'm sorry. Jerry Rice, Mississippi Valley State. Bob Hayes, Florida A&M. By the way, Bob Hayes was considered one of the fastest men in the NFL at the time. Jerry Rice broke all kinds of receiving records. Walter Payton, Sweetness, from Jackson State. Shannon Sharp from Savannah State. Deacon Jones from South Carolina State and Mississippi Valley. Michael Strahan, Texas. You know that Michael Strahan is on, is it ABC? He went to Texas Southern. Art Shell, University of Mississippi, ES. Jackie Slater, Jackson State. Mel Blount, Southern, Willie Brown, Grambling, Buck Buchanan, Grambling State, Willie Lanier, Morgan State, Harry Carson, South Carolina State, Richard Dent, Tennessee State, John Stallworth, Alabama A&M, Aeneas Williams, Southern, Willie Davis, Grambling, Lem Barney, Jackson State, Larry Little, Bethune-Cookman. Hello, those are just a few names. So why are we continuing to send our kids to white universities that don't give a damn about them? Oh, one other note here that we need to make sure that you understand. You say, well, we're sending them because of the NIL. Well, you know why these white universities can pay the exorbitant fees for the NIL? It is because of those black athletes. Now, if those same black athletes went to HBCUs, that money would shift to HBCUs. And then those HBCUs would be able to pay similar amounts of monies to these young black athletes. It's just that simple. I ask you about character, consciousness, and conviction. Do our young people have the fortitude of those people who came before them, that now you are able to earn that NIL because people came before you and laid the groundwork? They didn't just lay the groundwork, they paved it with concrete. And you all spit in their faces. Today's young black athletes doesn't give a damn about what was laid there before him. It's a me generation. It's all about me. And then all of a sudden, you get slapped in the face with racism. One of your friends gets gunned down by a racist white cop and he walks free. One of your friends get attacked by white people and killed on a boating accident, and nobody gives a damn. One of your teammates get accosted by white teammates and nobody cares. And you're left frustrated, angry, mad. That's because you expect people to care on your personal level, but you don't care about your people on a conscious level. That's a problem, girls and boys. And it's time for you all to wake up and say, hey, we're not going to take this anymore. We're not going to be that $40 million slave, as William Roden talked about. We're not going to continue to fund white universities that don't give a damn whether or not we graduate, that we don't give a damn about whether or not my mother died and I had to go on a sabbatical to deal with the death of my parent. We shouldn't be going to universities and being the only one or two black people there, and you're only there because you're on the football team, and the black population is 0.01% of the total population. What that says to you, and what it should say to you, is that they're not even trying to recruit black people. They don't want black people on their campus except to entertain them. Except to dribble basketballs and score touchdowns. Where is your consciousness? What happened? Are you so jaded with social media? Are you you're so into this thing that everybody needs to get along? Well, I'm for that too. But I'm no damn fool. And right now, we're raising a generation of black fools. The ones that shucked and jived back in the day. Even those black people back in the day who was forced to shuck and jive, behind the scenes, they were working constantly to make sure that their children were going to be able to grow up in a world that they didn't. But y'all don't even care. I'm talking to young people, and I'm talking to the parents as well. And maybe I'm channeling my book, Blue Chip Down, right now. Maybe that's what's going on in my head. But here's what I know. That if our young people don't change their mentality, this is going to continue. And it's going to get worse before it gets better. And that's just the bottom line. We'll take a break. It's called Black Focus Radio. I hope you're mad. It's our issues, our solutions, our voices on joynetradio.com.
Every day, potential customers are deciding who to trust. The question is, will they choose you? At Chanbear Media Consultants, we help businesses, nonprofits, entrepreneurs, and authors build brands that stand out and get results. Need a new logo, podcast or website development and evaluation, grant research and writing, book editing with formatting and cover design? Chanbear Media Consultants has got you covered. With over 40 years of media experience, David W. Coleman and the Chanbear team combine creativity with strategy to help your organization communicate with confidence and grow with purpose. Don't settle for ordinary when your brand can be extraordinary. Call Chanbear Media Consultants today at 615-554-0568. That's 615-554-0568. Chanbear Media Consultants, building brands, creating influence, and most importantly, delivering results. What's old is new again. The release of the Pain of Vengeance audiobook is finally here. A new generation, but the old story remains the same. What happens to an officer of the court when the tables of justice are turned against him? Will he abide or take the law into his own hands? Follow the saga of Malik Coleman as he makes decisions that will change lives forever. Be the first to hear it and hear it again. What would you do? Accept an unjust ruling or reject the system outright that views fathers as second-class citizens? Order The Pain of Vengeance today. Now available as an audiobook. The Pain of Vengeance will make you cheer, cry, laugh, and make you question equality and who truly benefits. Order The Pain of Vengeance audiobook by Dante Sinkay today. Barbecue season is here and you're still using that 99-cent goop full of chemical derivatives and high fructose corn syrup for your sauce? Stop, please. Get to ribrub.com now and save your next cookout with an array of all natural rubs and sauces. Start with the Dynamic Rib Dust for seasoning and the Dynamic Rib Rub for flavor, and top off your grilled or smoked masterpiece with Dynamic Rib Juice. Don't forget the Dynamic Pepper Juice for just the right kick for those chicken wings. One other thing, you've got to try the delectably delicious Dynamic Rib Nuts. Can't decide? Order a Dynamic gift box and satisfy all of your cravings. Come on, give me your hand and let me take you to barbecue land at ribrub.com. That's RIBBRUBB.com, and we'll show you how to bake it, grill it, smoke it. Oh yeah.
Welcome back to Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices. 855-525-5683 is the number. That's how you get in touch with me if you'd like to join the show. You know, I'm talking a lot about young people today, and it's because a lot of things that are happening against them and to them, and things that they are doing that's been in the news this entire summer. And I harken back to when I was growing up. I remember, I started babysitting my sister when I was probably about 8 or 9 years old. My sister and I are 6.5 years apart. You do the math. I remember staying at home by myself when I went to Mitchell Elementary in Little Rock, Arkansas. Mitchell was a block and a half from where we lived. In fact, it wasn't even a block and a half. It was a half a block. We could stand on our back porch and look into Mitchell's playground. That's how I always knew if someone was on the campus playing basketball, I could hear them. Even before then, my mother and I, my family, lived with my aunt that was in the what we called then the West End on Peyton Street. And this was before we moved to Schiller, which was near Mitchell. I walked home from 24th and Battery to 20th and Peyton as a first grader, literally every day. I'm not kidding. Consciousness, character, and conviction. And responsibility. Here's the one thing that my mother always told me. She said, don't stop for strangers. Don't get into any strange cars. And when you get home, particularly when we got to Schiller Street, don't let anyone in my house. I was real picky about that when I grew up as well. When I became an adult, my children were not allowed to have company when I wasn't home. That was a no-no. And fortunately they abided by the rules, but I would snap on your ass. Here's why. Because you as a child is not responsible for what that other child does. You're a child just like he or her. The other thing is, more importantly, that when you start, and it got to a point where I rarely have guests. I didn't invite strangers into my home as an adult because I didn't want, growing up, there were a lot of times you'd have to go to a house and later on in the week, that house would end up getting robbed because you've invited someone in your house that you don't know. And that person, a lot of times, was responsible for you getting burglarized. I'm being real. So I didn't invite people in my home. And I certainly, when I got older, I wasn't, when I got 12, 13, 14 years old, no, friends didn't come over my house. And if they did, they would have to stand on the porch. If my mother came home and someone after work and one of my friends, unless she knew him, there were certain groups of friends that she knew, most of them were from church, you were not allowed in the house. Period. That just didn't happen. So I know you're probably asking, well, where are you going with this? Well, there are two stories that have broken over the last couple of weeks that I'm basically appalled. And both stories, one happened here in the Baltimore area, and the other one happened in Memphis. I've lived in both cities. Let's start with the first one. You all have heard this story. Young 13-year-old girl ends up inviting a 20-year-old man into her home, unbeknownst to her mother. And apparently she had done this multiple times before. And mother had threatened the girl that said, hey, look, if I catch another man in this house, I'm going to put a bullet in his, you know what. I guess the girl challenged her. And sure enough, mama came home. It doesn't say whether or not she was working at 1 o'clock in the morning, but about 1:15 in the morning, she goes into the girl's room. There is a man under her bed. This man was 20 years old. Apparently there was an argument. For whatever reasons, the man said, okay, I'm leaving. He did. And while he walked out the door, the mother shot him in the back of the head. She wanted to claim self-defense, but clearly based on the information that has been published, this was not self-defense. Yeah, you can be angry and upset that a grown-ass man is in your daughter's bedroom, your 13-year-old daughter. Yeah, you can be upset, but that doesn't give you the right to shoot him and kill him. And there are some people on social media saying, oh, he gets what he deserved. He shouldn't have been in that 13-year-old girl's room. No, remember that Fifth Amendment that I read, that you have a right to due process? Nobody is the judge, jury, and executioner. Just like you are angry that cop shot down Ruiz, you should be angry that mother, regardless of his crime of being with the 13-year-old, that she shot him in the head. And not where he was accosting her, he was walking away. Okay? The second story, which was even more horrific. This past summer, it was around early July, 2 children, young people, were murdered in their home while their mother worked. One was a 15-year-old girl and the other one was her 9-year-old brother. They were killed by a 16-year-old boy. That 16-year-old boy was allegedly the boyfriend of the 15-year-old girl. And he had posted on social media a picture of he and the 15-year-old girl in bed and he was holding a pistol. And he told her that he would kill her if he ever found out that she was messing with someone else. Horrific. Not only did he kill the girl, but he killed the 9-year-old brother. This young 16-year-old is now under arrest and facing charges, and rightfully so. Now, here's my point. Are we allowing our children to become adults before they're ready? I'm just asking the question. Because here's the problem. Clearly in the Memphis case, this young 13-year-old had been a problem for quite some time. The news is that she had been participating in early sexual activity long before she got with this 20-year-old guy. And there are also inferences that the 20-year-old guy was paying bills in that house. So it hadn't been corroborated as of yet. Allegedly, he was paying bills. That the mother was angry because he stopped paying those bills out of his disability check and had told him not to come around anymore. Was this mother prostituting her daughter? That's the question that we need to ask. This is why it's important to get all the facts before people run off on social media. But these are things that are being brought up. Apparently, the mother in the case here in Baltimore, she was at work. Did she know her daughter was dating? Are 15 and 16-year-old kids ready to take on the dating industry? Based on what we see on social media, based on what is all out here on television, what are you watching with your kids? Are you sitting here and watching dirty movies with your kids? And I don't mean porn. I'm talking about movies that are sexually explicit. I'm talking about movies that are pushing drugs, gangs, and violence. I saw a couple of posts the other day where this so-called new movie is coming out, and it's about a family. By the way, it's produced by, guess who? Curtis Jackson. 25 cent minus 25 cent. And it's about drugs. I've talked to you all a lot about these movies that continue to push drugs, gangs, and violence into our communities, that continue to push gun play, murder, mayhem, and misogyny into our community. And you all as parents are allowing your children to watch this mess. My granddaughter was here earlier today. You know what we were watching together? Gracie's Corner. You all have probably seen the video that I posted of her singing. That's what we do. There are certain things that she is not allowed to watch, not only in my home, but in her parents' home. I told my kids that stay young, stay a child as long as you can. Yeah, as you grow and get older, you're going to, and I'm going to introduce you to some things that are adult related, some things that you have to begin to understand when you become an adult. But before then, stay a child as long as you want. I remember one time we were at my mother's house, my son, my daughter, and me. Her sister was there, and my aunt didn't have children. And she made the comment because we were putting together, I was down on the floor, laying on the floor. My son was jumping all on me, and we were putting together some toys. And I remember my aunt saying, Dave, do you have to be on the floor? Get up off the floor. You're a grown man. I said, I'm down here on the floor because my kids are down here. And I want them to enjoy themselves as children. Because I wanted them to be children as long as possible. Remember, you're considered an adult at 18 years of age. Things change. There are things that you can do at 18 that you couldn't do at 17. You can go in the army. Okay? Even now, if you commit a crime at 18, you are charged as an adult, not as a juvenile, as an adult. So I say, stay a child as long as you can, because once you become an adult, you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. You're an adult. And when you're starting to give children adult stimuli, they're not used to it. They don't understand it. Look, children are the rudest and incompassionate people that you will ever meet. They don't care. They're selfish. They don't care because they're children. They have to grow and understand what compassion is. They need to grow and understand what being grateful is all about. A lot of kids don't even understand that concept until they're out of the house, where they can't go to the refrigerator and open the door and pull out anything they want to eat. Now, as an adult, they go to the refrigerator and the best thing in there to eat is the light bulb, because guess what? The pay hadn't hit your bank account yet. Or you had to substitute food to pay your utility bill or your light bill or your car note or your insurance. It's different. So my point is this. What are we exposing our children to? Why are we so quick to want them to be adults? My daughter wanted to wear makeup like at 12 years old. Nope, you're not wearing makeup. You ain't grown. Someone said, oh, you're just being mean. You're being harsh. No, I wanted my daughter to stay a child as long as possible. I wanted my son to stay a child as long as possible. Not that I was holding them back, because I was teaching them as much as I could. And yes, they made mistakes. Yes, they didn't follow all my rules, but a lot of the things that I taught them today, they are living it. And each of them says, thank you. Daddy, you remember when? Yeah. Daddy, you remember when? Yeah. I was mad as hell at you. I know. But you know what else? You know what else? I didn't give a damn that you were mad at me. Because I wasn't your friend, I'm your daddy. Okay? They didn't understand that then. They understand it now. So here's my point. Is that the stimuli that we are allowing our children to be exposed to is part and primary the reason that they are doing so much dastardly deeds out here. They don't care. Kids 12, 13, 14-year-olds breaking into cars, joining gangs, selling drugs because they got to get theirs. And sometimes the parents are encouraging them. It's okay you selling them drugs. You bringing some money home and helps with the light bill. It's okay that you're out here prostituting your body because that man giving you money. It's okay that you 13 years old and that man is 20 years old, or that man is 30 years old. It's shocking to me as I hear more and more stories of young girls who dated men who were 10, 15 years older than them when they were only 14, 15 years old. And their parent, mainly their mothers, knew about it. But the man was supplying money to the daughter. I don't care if you're mad at me, but we gotta get our hands around this and push our children back into the perimeters of what being a child is all about. Because it's destroying our children, consequently destroying our nation. I hate to say this, and I'm going to take a break. I don't go anywhere where I know there's going to be a lot of black young people. In fact, I don't go anywhere where I know it's going to be a lot of white young people. But it's sad, as much as I love my people, that I fear our children more than anybody else. And that should not be. I fear that one of them is going to disrespect me. I fear that one of them is going to challenge me. I fear that one of them may look at my woman and make a comment that is off brand. The question is, what are we going to do about this? It can't be me. It can't be one parent. You see, the village used to raise a child. When I got in trouble up the street, Miss Sarah called my mama and said, Miss Coleman, your son was up here doing so-and-so, so-and-so. My mama didn't cuss Miss Sarah out. My mama didn't go up to Miss Sarah's house and wanting to fight her. My mama sat me down and asked me, what did you do? And don't lie. Because I'm gonna go up and I'm gonna take you with me. And we gonna talk to Miss Sarah. And if she tells me something other than what you told me, you're gonna be in a lot of trouble. Or she's gonna say, go get me a switch. You're listening to Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices. When we return is what we must do.
Every day, potential customers are deciding who to trust. The question is, will they choose you? At Chanbear Media Consultants, we help businesses, nonprofits, entrepreneurs, and authors build brands that stand out and get results. Need a new logo, podcast or website development and evaluation, grant research and writing, book editing with formatting and cover design? Chanbear Media Consultants has got you covered. With over 40 years of media experience, David W. Coleman and the Chanbear team combine creativity with strategy to help your organization communicate with confidence and grow with purpose. Don't settle for ordinary when your brand can be extraordinary. Call Chanbear Media Consultants today at 615-554-0568. That's 615-554-0568. Chanbear Media Consultants, building brands, creating influence, and most importantly, delivering results. Barbecue season is here and you're still using that 99-cent goop full of chemical derivatives and high fructose corn syrup for your sauce? Stop, please. Get to ribrub.com now and save your next cookout with an array of all natural rubs and sauces. Start with the Dynamic Rib Dust for seasoning and the Dynamic Rib Rub for flavor, and top off your grilled or smoked masterpiece with Dynamic Rib Juice. Don't forget the Dynamic Pepper Juice for just the right kick for those chicken wings. One other thing, you've got to try the delectably delicious Dynamic Rib Nuts. Can't decide? Order a Dynamic gift box and satisfy all of your cravings. Come on, give me your hand and let me take you to barbecue land at ribrub.com. That's RIBBRUBB.com, and we'll show you how to bake it, grill it, smoke it. Oh yeah. What's old is new again. The release of the Pain of Vengeance audiobook is finally here. A new generation, but the old story remains the same. What happens to an officer of the court when the tables of justice are turned against him? Will he abide or take the law into his own hands? Follow the saga of Malik Coleman as he makes decisions that will change lives forever. Be the first to hear it and hear it again. What would you do? Accept an unjust ruling or reject the system outright that views fathers as second-class citizens? Order The Pain of Vengeance today. Now available as an audiobook. The Pain of Vengeance will make you cheer, cry, laugh, and make you question equality and who truly benefits. Order The Pain of Vengeance audiobook by Dante Sinkay today.
Welcome back to Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices. 855-525-5683 is the number. That's how you get in touch with me if you'd like to join the show. Want to remind you all, don't forget to get the book, The Pain of Vengeance, written by yours truly, Dante Sinkay. It is on sale now. If you want to get an autographed copy, let me know. Send me an email at blackfocusradio@gmail.com or thepainofvengeance@gmail.com and say, hey, Dave, how can I get an autographed copy? And I'll send you the information. You can buy it direct from me, and you can save me that 45% commission that Amazon is robbing me from. Whew. Oh, my God. All right. Blue Chip Down will also be out here in the next month or so. Make sure you check that out as well. I'll be giving you more information about that also. So we're in my favorite segment of the show. It's called What We Must Do. You know, I talk a lot of things about a lot of things on the show. And you find that a lot of people do shows, podcasts, and they throw out all this information and you're like, oh, it's kind of like getting butter, flour, sugar, and milk. And nobody tells you how to make biscuits. Don't forget about the eggs. Or they don't tell you how to make a cake. Or they don't tell you how to make bread. Or they don't tell you how to make pasta. They just, hey, here's this, make something. And you're like, it's like America's Next Top Chef or whatever it's called. Here, we're going to give you this and we expect you to make something good. Well, on my show, I give you information and I expect you to follow up and try to make good of it. That's why I do this segment, What We Must Do. And we talked about a lot of stuff today. And a lot of stuff on today's show dealt with racism in America. It's unfortunate. I would love to be able to talk more about politics. And politics certainly is racist and it affects our community. But there are certain things that we need to use the microscope or zero in on specifics. The racism in Argentina and around the world. The racism and police brutality. Okay? The racism on college campuses. The ignorance in how parents are not raising children today, which is contributing to a lot of the negative things that are happening to black children. That's basically what we talked about today. And it's sad that we continue to have to deal with these types of issues. But we've got to. And we've got to be able to use our friends. We've got to be able to use the things that are available for us to try and help raise our children. You see, my mom was a single parent. As you can see, I'm pretty damn learned. Now, I will tell you that I had a brother. He's no longer with us because he died in prison because he wanted to be a drug dealer, who didn't listen. But because she put me in areas that I needed to be in order to make me a better person. Okay? I told you about Camp Grundy earlier in the show, right? Believe it or not, Camp Grundy really helped me because I was able to understand white people more. It was a lot easier for me to call out their bigotry and racism because I saw it up close and personal. But not only that, I realized that a lot of things that they liked, I liked. I liked comic books. And part of the reason I was able to read so well is because of comic books. Here's a quick side note. Before I got my son into reading, you know what I did? And I tell parents this all the time, particularly when it comes to boys. If you want your son to be able to read or get him into reading, give him comic books. I told you my granddaughter was here earlier, right? My son was with me. You know what we were talking about? Marvel Comics and the new releases that are coming out with Marvel. He is infatuated with that stuff because as a child, I gave him comic books to read. I also gave him Harry Potter to read. I also gave him books about blackness to read. I did basically the same thing to my daughter. So you have to do things that maybe the child don't understand today, but later on in life, it'll be beneficial to him or her. So I guess with all of this being said, what we must do is parent. That means no sometimes. That means telling that friend or your child that you're not going over Johnny's house until I talk to his mother. When my kids went and visited, I knew the parents. I wasn't sending my child over anybody's house that I didn't know their parents. And if anything, and when they would come back, you know what I would ask? How was it? You didn't have any problems, did you? Did nobody try to do anything to you, did they? No, Dad, why you ask that? Because I'm your damn daddy. I remember my son going over to a friend's house that we thought was a friend, and he came back and he even knew he was uncomfortable with some of the things that were going on at that house. I'm not going to go into it, but he was uncomfortable. And he came back, and as soon as he got in the car, he had this look on his face like, yuck. He said to me, he said, Dad, I guess I won't be going back over there. I said, oh, really? What happened? And he laid it out to me. He said, no, I won't be going back. And I echoed him and I said, you're exactly right, son. You will not be going back over there. Period. Okay? Because see, once you develop consciousness in your children, they'll begin to understand when they are in situations where they don't belong. See, what we must do is parent. We've forgotten that. Now we want to be just like our children. We're out here, a lot of y'all out here dating. Sometimes you can't, some of these women, you can't tell the mother from the daughter because the mother is dressed more provocatively than the daughter is. You can't, and then sometimes some of these older men be hitting on the daughter, and the daughter may be 15, but she look like she's 25. And then the mama gets mad. Why are you hitting on my daughter? She's just 15 years old. Well, why are you dressing her like she's 25? How would I know? You see what I'm saying here? We got to parent. Parenting is rules. Parenting is teaching your kids the importance of school and education. Parenting is teaching them how to respect their elders. Back in the day when we'd have a fight after school, now you're seeing kids posting fights of kids on social media. Back in the day when we had fights, if a grown person showed up and said, hey, y'all need to stop that, we broke up. We ain't fighting no more. At least we ain't fighting that day. Now, grown person shows up, the group turns on the grown person and jumps on them. That's parenting, or the lack thereof. We got to do a better job, folks. It's the only way we're going to solve this problem. You say, well, how do you put the toothpaste back into the toothbrush, or the tube, I should say? It only takes one person. Okay? I tell people all the time this. Part of the reason that I do my teenage survival kit is because I want to teach young people about life and the choices that they make. And I hope that something that I touch on in that kit, and I just redesigned it, you'll be hearing more about that here real soon. Something that I touch on in that kit will stick with those kids. And then that kid will grow up and he will teach another kid, or he'll teach his friend, and then he'll teach his friend. And before you know it, it becomes multiplicative. And I like to say I live forever. The same thing applies. I grew up without a father, but I tell you all the time that three men were very instrumental in my life. Clifton Earl Towns, John Talley, and Samuel Hudson Sr. Very instrumental in my life. They live forever because guess what? Some of the same values that they taught me, I taught my son and my daughter. Some of those same values that those men taught me, my son is teaching my granddaughter and his stepdaughter. Hello? You see how that works? So, as I end today's show, and I must be honest, I didn't plan to spend all of this time on these topics, but sometimes situations present themselves where you just gotta address them. And as I close today, it's very simple. What we must do is parent. Okay, I hope you enjoyed the show. Let me close with this quote. The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but in times of challenge. We today are being measured. This is not convenience. This is a challenge. Are you ready to stand up? Thank you for listening to Black Focus Radio, our issues, our solutions, our voices on joynetradio.com. And by the way, Habari Gani.
You've been listening to Black Focus, where we discuss our issues with our solutions and our voices. Join us every weekday afternoon at 1 p.m. on joynetradio.com.